Hey class, it's Miss FD again, and today we're going to focus on Congress. This is in the unit on institutions. So we're going to start out with the legislative branch, which obviously is Congress. We know something about Congress already, I am sure, such as it is a bicameral legislature. Alright, what is the evolution of Congress? What has happened since we got our first Congress? Let's see what's going on. Okay, we remember the framers, old dead white guys, right? Okay, so what did they intend? Their main focus was to figure out how strong to make the national government, and their big issue was to balance large and small states. Remember the Virginia plan, which they were a very large state, very populous state. They wanted a bicameral legislature, and the New Jersey plan, they didn't want to be left out and underrepresented, so they wanted equal representation. So what the framers came up with is bicameralism, which is two houses. And they thought that Congress was going to be the most dominant institution. As you can see where we are now in our country, that's not necessarily the case. Alright, how is the House organized? We'll start out talking about the House of Representatives, and then we'll go on to the Senate. But you know, it's much larger. You have to be 25 years old to be in the House. There are 435 in the House, and they have to do things differently because there are so many people in the House of Representatives. So historically, power struggles have occurred between members and leadership. The leader of the House of Representatives is a Speaker of the House, and Boehner is our one presently. But in 1994, there were some changes brought about in how the House was organized. Committee chairs could only hold their positions for 6 years, so that did kind of eliminate some of the leadership power issues. Alright, to continue, how the House is organized. Alright, there has been a reduction in the number of committees and subcommittees. The Speaker dominated the selection of committee chairs. Remember, the Speaker is the most powerful person in all of Congress. And this person has to make lots of big decisions as far as what issues get on the agenda. And this contract with America, this was 1994 Republican program to change this whole committee system and give the Speaker more power in selecting who are the committee chairpersons. Alright? So this was Republican controlled. 94-95. Alright, let's talk about the Senate. Do you remember how old you have to be in the Senate? If you thought 30, you're absolutely right. Okay? And they serve 6-year terms. The Senate escaped many of the tensions encountered by the House. As the Senate evolved, there was a major struggle about how the members should be selected. Originally, in the Constitution, members were selected by the state legislatures, and then that was changed with the 17th Amendment in 1913, where the senators are directly elected by the people of the state. A filibuster is another major issue. This happens only in the Senate, and the purpose of a filibuster is to delay action on a bill, and that's called non-stop talking. Okay, back to the filibuster. The way to stop that is called a cloture vote, and it's Rule 22. Another name is Rule 22, and that was created in 1917. Lots going on then, during the Progressive era. Alright, this is Mike McIntyre. He is our representative for our district. And so what's the difference between people in the House and the Senate? So let's talk about those in the House of Representatives. Remember, there are 435, and they're much more representative of the country as a whole in the House. Less male, less white. Membership in Congress usually becomes a career because the incumbents have a huge electoral advantage. I've got a chart coming up to show you how much of an advantage they have. Alright, in 1994, voters opposed incumbents due to a huge budget deficit. And so, because of that, various policies, legislative, executive bickering, and scandal ensued, so some changes needed to be made. Okay, here's that chart I told you about. Alright, this is my visual on diversity in America. Okay. This chart is showing blacks, Hispanics, and women in Congress starting in 71 and going through 06. So we're looking at minority representation in the House of Representatives. Starting down here with the 92nd Congress going all the way up to the 109th Congress. We've got the Senate over here on the left, and then the House on the right. Look, the most contemporary, 37 blacks, 23 Hispanics, and 59 women in the House versus 14 women in the Senate and only one black male in the in the Senate. That's a big, big difference. So the House is definitely more representative of America as a whole. And an incumbent is a person that has been elected over and over again, and they have a huge advantage. Some reasons why: they get a lot more media coverage. Incumbents also have a greater name recognition. People know who they are. They have franking privilege, which, do you know what that is? Aha, I know you did. It's when you get to send free mail, and that is huge. Travel to the districts. You're going to get your face all over the news if you go and see and be seen and talk about how many great programs you have proposed for your district. So members are secure. They want to secure policies and programs for their voters, their constituents. All right, here's another visual. The percentage of incumbents elected, and lots of color going on this graph, but the red, House members re-elected, starts right here in 52, 90%. And it doesn't really go much below that up until, looks like 75% going on in the mid-90s. Budget deficits, not too happy with incumbents. All right, here's the Senate. It's up and down. Not particularly all over the place, but as you can see, it's well above 50% all along the board. So that's a big deal. And these two members of the House and Senate getting reelected with 60% or more of the vote. That's not as dramatic. So go incumbency. If you're an incumbent, it's all about you. All right. How do members vote? Their behavior as far as voting, not their behavior. Okay. The representational view is meaning that the members of Congress should vote to please their constituents, how they feel they should be voting. Okay, what do people in my district think? An organizational view, what's going on here is they're going to vote according to their organization or their party, okay? Where constituency interests are not vitally at stake, members primarily respond to cues from their colleagues. That is, information, a cue, given from their colleagues in the same political party. Or lastly, they can say, I don't want to do any of those two. I'm going to vote based on what I think, my attitude, my ideology. I don't care if everybody else in the Republican Party thinks that gay marriage is bad. Then, if that's the case, I'm going to do what I feel. And that's just one example of many. How is the structure in the parties different between the Senate and the House? Okay, we know that the leader of the House is the Speaker of the House, okay, but in the Senate, the President pro tem is the one that presides over the Senate, and he or she is the member with the most seniority, and it's really an honorific position, not so much a lot of power. And this person is different than the Speaker because they get a vote. They are a senator from their state. I'm sorry, I was going to say this person gets a vote as opposed to the vice president, who is the president of the Senate. He only gets to vote if there's a tie. Okay, leaders are the majority leader and the minority leader. They are elected by their respective party members. And these are the ones that really have the power, majority leader and minority leader in the Senate. Okay, party structure in the Senate continued. Another leadership role in the Senate is a party whip. They keep leaders informed and they round up the votes, count noses. How are you going to vote? How are you going to vote? Each party has a policy committee. And what do? Well, they schedule Senate business and they put bills in order of what they think is the most important. Committee assignments are handled by a group of senators, each for their own party. And remember, the Speaker in the House, he would decide what committee, or she would decide what committee to go on. Okay, here we go. Party structure in the House. Okay, the Speaker of the House is the leader of the majority party and presides over House. Again, he or she is the most powerful person in Congress. The majority leader and minority leader, they're going to be taking charge on the floor when debate's going on. The party whip in the House is going to round up votes. Think about a whip and you're trying to get somebody to do something, round up votes. And committee assignments and legislative schedules are set by each party. Okay? A caucus. We've heard that word before. Kind of confusing. What is it? Well, a congressional caucus is an association of members of Congress created to advocate a political ideology or a regional or economic interest. So there may be members of Congress from the South that want to promote agricultural interests. There may be members of Congress that want to form a caucus that want to promote technological interest and industry, maybe out in California, Simi Valley. Okay, an intra-party caucus. Members share a similar ideology. That's like inside the same party. And a personal interest caucus. Members share an interest in an issue. There's also a constituency caucus. All right, that's constituents are voters in a certain district. Established to represent groups, regions, sometimes both. Okay, committees. This is where most of the work is done in Congress. Committee systems. And there's a bunch of different kinds of committees that I can talk about later. But they are the most important organizational feature of Congress. And what do? Well, they consider bills or proposals. They maintain oversight of executive agencies, which we will talk about in, I guess, 2 units away. And also they deal with investigations. Okay, here are the different kinds of committees that we've got. The most important one is a standing committee. No, they don't stand up all day, but standing means they're permanent committees. And they are very specific. We might have a standing committee on education. We do. We have a standing committee on foreign affairs. We have an intelligence committee. So that's standing committee, most important. A select committee, that is a group appointed for a limited purpose and a limited duration. So just for a special time, and they're gone, disbanded, continued. All right, we have joint committees. A joint committee, those on which both representatives and senators serve. All right, conference committee, a joint committee appointed to resolve differences in the Senate and the House if versions of the same piece of legislation comes about before final passage of a bill. So if the House has a version of a bill, the Senate has a version of a bill, it's a little bit different. They have to make sure it's the same bill before it goes to the president. And that's what they do. All right. Committee practices. Okay. The number of committees has varied. There have been significant cuts in the number of House committees in '95. Remember, that was the contract with America, Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, and in the number of House and Senate subcommittees. So, reduction in number of committees. The majority party has the majority seats on the committees, and the chairman of the committees is always a member of the majority party. All right. Got to have a lot of people to work for these folks in Congress, their staff. The constituency service is a major task of members' staff. Legislative functions of the staff might include devising proposals, negotiating agreements, organizing hearings, and meetings with lobbyists and administrators. Members' staff consider themselves advocates for their employers. So if you're a staffer, say for Mike McIntyre, our representative, these staff members could come to Wilmington and they could listen to concerns of the constituents and get back to Mike about those. Like I said, Mike, as if I know him personally, not so much. Okay. All right. Growth in staffs and members' committees in Congress, 1930 to 2000. Okay. Here's 30, obviously. Okay. Starting out, not a lot of staff members. Okay. And this is in thousands. Thousands. All right. So there are literally, 7,000 to 8,000 staffers that work in the House. Not so much in the Senate because they don't have that many. And these folks get a pretty decent salary. Very busy, I would imagine. Okay, how does a bill become law? It's got to be introduced by a member of Congress first. They're the only ones that can introduce a bill. The president cannot. The president can get a person in Congress to do it for him, but he can't do it. A bill is referred to a committee to be considered after it's introduced. And then special things for the House of Representatives that you learned in civics. All revenue and appropriation bills must begin in the House. The vast majority of bills do not make it. They die.
Whew, you sure gotta climb a lot of steps to get to this Capitol building here in Washington. Well, I wonder who that sad little scrap of paper is.
I'm just a bill, yes, I'm only a bill, and I'm sitting here on Capitol Hill. Well, it's a long, long journey to the capital city. It's a long, long wait while I'm sitting in committee, but I know I'll be a law someday. At least I hope and pray that I will, but today I am still just a bill.
Gee, Bill, you certainly have a lot of patience and courage.
Well, I got this far. When I started, I wasn't even a bill. I was just an idea. Some folks back home decided they wanted a law passed, so they called their local congressman, and he said, "You're right, there ought to be a law." And he sat down and wrote me out and introduced me to Congress, and I became a bill. And I'll remain a bill until they decide to make me a law. Just a bill, yes, I'm only a bill, and I got as far as Capitol Hill. Well, now I'm stuck in committee, and I'll sit here and wait while a few key congressmen discuss and debate whether they should let me be a law. I hope and pray that they will, but today I am still just a bill.
Listen to those congressmen arguing. Is all that discussion and debate about you?
Yeah, I'm one of the lucky ones. Most bills never even get this far. I hope they decide to report on me favorably, otherwise I may die.
Die?
Yeah, die in committee. Oh, but it looks like I'm going to live now. I go to the House of Representatives and they vote on me.
If they vote yes, what happens?
Then I go to the Senate and the whole thing starts all over again.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes. I'm just a bill. Yes, I'm only a bill. And if they vote for me on Capitol Hill, well, then I'm off to the White House where I'll wait in a line with a lot of other bills for the president to sign. And if he signs me, then I'll be a law. I hope and pray that he will. But today I am still just a bill.
You mean even... If the whole Congress says you should be a law, the president can still say no?
Yes, that's called a veto. If the president vetoes me, I have to go back to Congress and they vote on me again, and by that time you're so old.
By that time, it's very unlikely that you'll become a law. It's not easy to become a law, is it?
No, but how I hope and pray that I will. But today I am still just a bill. He signed your bill, now you're a law. Oh, yes!
Gotta love that clip. Alright. After hearings and markup sessions, the committee reports the bill out to the House or the Senate. A bill must be placed on a calendar to come for a vote before either House. House Rules Committee sets the rules for consideration, such as how long you're going to talk about it, and the time limit before it dies. Okay, a little bit more. Alright. Bills are debated on the floor of the House or the Senate. If there are major differences in the bill as passed by the House and Senate, then, as we spoke earlier, a conference committee is going to be convened, and then they'll come up with the same version of the bill, and then the president's going to get that bill. He has several options, what he's going to do, right? And, you know, you can sign it, obviously, and that's the easy way. He can refuse it, which is the veto, and it can be overridden with our checks and balance system, as you know. But it has to be overridden by 2/3 of a vote. That doesn't happen very often. It's really hard to get 2/3 of everybody in Congress to be on the same page. Alright, finally here we got our red X. We know it's the last slide for me to talk here. Alright, post 9/11, how has Congress changed? There was a 9/11 commission recommended that Congress make fundamental changes in how it oversees our agencies specific to counterterrorism and intelligence gathering. And Congress passed some of these proposals after some opposition in both parties, but basically Congress is going to be a bit more focused on gathering intelligence and counter-terrorism activities post 9/11. Alright, that's it.